Hello from Hong Kong. My name is Aidan Gregory, Senior Correspondent at Insurance Asia News. We're in Wan Chai this afternoon at Markel International's Hong Kong headquarters, and I'm joined by Jiang, Markel's Managing Director for Greater China. Thank you for joining me this afternoon, Chelsea.
No worries.
We're here this afternoon to discuss Markel's strategy in the region, and broadly the evolution of the insurance market in Greater China. So perhaps a good place to start would be if you could kind of outline Markel's strategic priorities in Greater China and the areas where the firm is actively looking to grow.
I think Markel in Greater China, we've been established in Hong Kong for 15 years. In fact, this year will be our 15-year anniversary. And we just celebrated our 10th year in China last year. So we've actually been in the Greater China market for the best part of the last 15 years. So I think it's a great honor of mine and pleasure to join Markel last year in July as the Greater China Managing Director. So I think Markel is a specialist insurance company. We are focused on specialty types of insurances, including financial lines, marine, fine arts, and specialty casualty business. And that continues to be our focus for the next couple of years. Now, in Hong Kong, we have our very well-established brand. We are a lead player in the financial line space, and in the recent years we brought on more lines of business, as I mentioned before. In China, we operate on the Lloyd's China platform and have been one of the earliest to join the platform, and are now the largest syndicate on the platform. In China, we are very focused on our marine business, but have also brought on additional lines of business like the ones I just mentioned. So we can see that there is really a huge collaboration that is happening between the China and Hong Kong offices. One of the great things being in this particular part of the world is that we do see a lot of synergy in where our clients need insurance coverage and risk advice, and we are able to offer that as part of the Greater China region. The other interesting thing I think that I have found in joining Markel is that our underwriters are highly empowered. We have underwriters with more than 40 years of experience in some lines of business, and we have underwriters who have highest authorities in the region, in APAC region as well. So our underwriters who are dealing and focus on those specialty lines of business are obviously able to deploy our capacity and offer that risk advice on a very local level, as well as react very quickly to market changes. So that continues to be our advantage and our focus in Greater China. Going forward, we do see that the entire risk industry is changing, and there are more and more emerging types of risks and specialty type of risks that the clients have a strong need for, and that will also be where we develop our different lines of business and our people and put down our investments. So recently we had the war that has obviously happened and has impacted everybody around the world in the Middle East. And many of our customers from the Greater China region, specifically in China, have been faced with difficulties in logistics management, shipping, etc. And we have been one of the leaders in the industry for the marine war, in the marine war space. So we have essentially offered, I would say, 24-hour service to our customers over the last few months. And the team has put in a huge amount of effort to ensure that our customers are provided with cover and have a safety net to fall back on if they do experience any damage to their shipments and also their vessels. So I think customer focus, local servicing and empowerment, as well as continuing to develop our specialty expertise, is our focus in Greater China.
It's quite timely that we're discussing this on the day that the US and Iran announced a peace deal and a ceasefire in the Middle East. But it must have been, an incredibly complicated few months, from all kinds of different, risk classes.
Yes, absolutely. Internationally, so Markel Greater China falls within our Markel International division. And that means we work very closely with all of our colleagues in APAC, but also in London and around the rest of the world. What that meant was in the very beginning of the war, when it was announced, I recall having 2 calls daily with our colleagues around the world to understand how that is impacting various clients around the world. And we are exchanging information on, the 24-hour news update, I guess, as well. All the different office underwriters in great collaboration to monitor the situation. And we have provided very timely war digests, I would say, call them, little snippets of highlights of what's happening on that day, to which vessels, to which cargo, back to our clients, as well as claims developments as well, and how those claims will be handled when, unfortunately, one of the vessels are hit. That is in addition to actually providing coverage. So I think the servicing of our customers has been a real differentiator for us in this journey, as well as, of course, being consistently providing that cover. There was a lot of talk in the market around what is going to be, if the cover is going to be continued, as well as what will be the rates of premiums when the covers do continue. So we were one of the most stable, I would say, and consistent underwriters in the market that offered a continuity of the coverage, but also at reasonable pricing for our customers so that they could continue their business, basically, in such a strange and acute situation.
The marine market is perhaps the one that's been most directly impacted by the conflict. What do you think will be like the most far-reaching and long-term effects of the current crisis?
I think what is very interesting, and this goes back to my comment around the collaboration around the world, right? The logistics and shipping in general as an industry is a worldwide market. It's not only for one region. It's not only for one country. What we've realized is that when things like this happen, we need to be really in close contact with all of our colleagues around the world. And as I said, we did 2 calls daily, sometimes at 3 a.m., sometimes at 4 p.m. Everyone around the world were pulling in their efforts to try and make that happen. One of the key things that we realized is that in order to service the marine risks that we have and that our clients have, we need to have that worldwide view. That's the first thing. The second thing is around exposure monitoring, right? Because as stocks are cargo is moving from one ship to another, and often, the technology and the information that insurers get is probably not in real time. So how do we make sure that our exposures are being managed properly, right? How do we have, as much as we can, a good idea of where our exposures lie, both in terms of vessels as well as cargo? I think that's also a challenge that a lot of the insurers will face and has realized very clearly during the conflict.
In specialty in particular, you recently strengthened in casualty and transaction liability. Are there any other specialty lines in the region where you're looking to add people and strengthen your capacity? So
I think we are always looking, right, for where we should actually have more products to be serviced locally and underwritten locally. I think in terms of product lines, as you mentioned, we have strengthened our casualty and transactional liability portfolio and resources. I think there is still a lot to do in those classes of business. In addition to those two, I think we are already very strong in marine and financial lines. However, I think we have a long way to go still in strengthening in areas such as marine liability insurance, which is a somewhat underserviced area, I would say, in the Greater China region. I would say that for other specialty lines, such as construction or such as energy, where we have global expertise at the moment, but we have not brought those in locally here yet, are also natural areas for us to explore further. Obviously China being an energy giant, especially in the renewable space in the region, it's something that we are always actively looking at. Whether or not that is suitable for us to bring in and localize here. And I think what's interesting is one area which is going to really, from a client's perspective, rather than from an insurer's perspective, going to impact them across all lines of business, all the risk exposures, is the impact of the AI transformation. For AI, obviously it's impacting every single foreseeable type of industry, right? And we are seeing a lot of our clients being impacted on that as well. In terms of the manufacturing industry in China, a lot of the advanced robotics that's being employed. In terms of marine, like smart shipbuilding, as well as smart terminals and ports, and as well as logistics and warehousing. You can just imagine the myriad of different risks and the different industries that will pop up as a result of the AI transition and transformation that various different industries are making. And I think this is an area that, as a specialty insurer, we're also very interested to proactively understanding the risks a lot more, seeing how we can tailor the coverage to help our clients in the future to meet some of these emerging risk needs that they have.
What impact are AI risks having on the threat landscape in China?
I already mentioned previously around the marine type of risks in terms of ports and terminals and management of smart warehousing and also smart shipbuilding, right? So this is an area where we're already seeing that being put in action and put in implementation for many of our customers in the Greater China region. The second area I would say is around the automotive manufacturing and what we would say transportation type of risks. So I mentioned before around autonomous driving. So our understanding is that this year the Chinese government will be releasing what we call level 3 autonomous driving legislation that allows then level 3 autonomous driving vehicles to be able to drive on the open roads. This will then have a significant impact on the risk profiles of the vehicles and the claims that we're likely to see. Yeah, and the low altitude economy. I don't know if you've ever been to various different cities in China, but you can get your food delivered via drones. You can get lots of different things. There are even now drones that carry people that can take you on a sightseeing tour of a particular location that was very difficult to get to previously. So that is all these things we are seeing going into the real application of customers. But I guess what is always challenging for the insurance industry in the traditional sense is that there are no insurance data related to these emerging risks. As with all types of new emerging risks, nobody has insured them in the past, and therefore there is no insurance data that can be collected to be able to do what we would normally do as an underwriting or a pricing assessment. So we need to work much more closely with the actual industry operators and participants in that particular ecosystem to understand how their data works. So for manufacturers who use advanced robotics to do manufacturing, they obviously have existing Q&A processes and quality checks in place. And how has that then differed, the results of that differed versus when it was manually being done and now using advanced robotics, And those are data points which are very helpful for insurance companies such as ourselves, who are very willing and very proactive to finding those proxy data points in order to draw insurance conclusions. I think that's one area. Those are the industries and one area that we can see we can work actively on. The second area I think is around the claims handling. I actually started my career in claims, so I have a soft spot for claims and managing and assessing claims. And I do think that with the rise of the use of AI, we do see that clients have difficulty in separating what is an AI-induced claim or contributed claim versus what is a human mistake or a human liability. And as a result, how does the policy respond to that? And then on the operational side of claims, we do see a lot of clients, and this is less so on the large corporate side, but definitely on the retail side, we do see that clients are using AI to prepare their own claims. Previously, where a human or a person would have used, read through the policies and looked at the circumstances, now we do see some claims that are submitted, obviously using AI tools that has prepared very lengthy claim documentation, in a very short period of time. How do we then make sure the information we're receiving is accurate? How do we verify that information? Yeah, and sometimes how do we ensure that it's relevant? in some cases, and not so much in Greater China, we haven't seen these examples yet, but I have heard of cases in other parts of the world where the AI will sometimes hallucinate and actually track and quote insurance policies or coverages that is not even part of the policy. But they may have seen that in other internet sites or quoted it among other commentary. It now takes us sometimes a bit more effort and a bit more time to actually make sure that the information we've been submitted is accurate and that we can process it. So I think we are looking at this AI emerging risk from a very holistic perspective, both in terms of how can we help our clients on this adoption journey and transformation journey, what are the new risks that they face, right? And then also on the servicing side, what are the things like claims handling and reporting that we can also see that AI is helping with. So a very holistic approach to that. And the last point I will make around AI is that it is not just a cyber risk. I do not believe that it's just a cyber risk because a cyber risk, when we talk about it in the traditional sense, is everyone imagines the internet and computers and servers and things like that, penetration tests and etc. Right? But AI is much more, I would say, grounded than that. It's much more well penetrated in the day-to-day human processing. Right? It's difficult for not just insurers, but anyone really, to have visibility on where AI has penetrated to which of the processes and for which part of the business or the operations has it really been the decision-making entity or factor versus in the past when we think about cyber, it's really talking about internet and things like that. So I think we need to embed that line of thinking into all of the different emerging AI risks that we see. And again, goes back to the point of being very, very closely connected with the customer who's adopting the AI to understand their processes and how they've utilized AI in their organization in order for us to help them to underwrite those risks.
It's a very complex and uncharted ground, but also sounds like a big opportunity for the insurers that can get the strategy right.
Absolutely.
In this area.
Absolutely. I think we do see the huge opportunity here. And I think Markel has always been very much in the forefront of innovation and taking a lead in some of these specialty type of risks. So we are actively looking into that at the moment, and in fact have been for the last, I would say, more than sort of 6 months. So we are really looking into it. We are talking to a lot of our customers. We are getting very deep into the ecosystems of some of these industries to try and get a first-hand knowledge of how does this work. And on that note, we are also making investments on the risk engineering side. So we are bringing in local risk engineering into Greater China so that we are able to work with clients on preventative measures and mitigation kind of measures on risks that they don't quite understand themselves today, or the impacts of those risks on their balance sheets and on their operations. So we're bringing a risk engineering lens and trying to help our clients and also help ourselves to understand where the weak points are and how do we make those points more resilient.
Away from the new and emerging risks of AI, I was hoping we could talk about one of the oldest risks around, which is, of course, the climate. El Nino has officially arrived this year, and some are even talking about a Godzilla El Nino in the region. How do you expect El Nino to shape the natural catastrophe risk landscape in Greater China?
I mean, we're today in Hong Kong, right? And I think it's been probably raining for the non-stop for the last 5 or 6 weeks, So I think we're definitely, as everyday people, we're feeling the impacts of the climate change and El Nino in particular, right, in this region. From Markel's perspective, we are not a property insurer, so we are not probably in the most impacted line of business from a nat cat view, but we do, of course, insure a lot of other type of classes that do have nat cat exposure, such as energy, such as marine, right? These are obvious, still first-party losses that are very exposed to the weather and the climate change. Going back to, or reflecting on what I said around risk engineering, I think that's one thing that we are really acknowledging or highlighting as one of the most important things to managing the nat cat risk as well, because there's not much that we can do immediately in this second to stop what is going to happen to the weather, or stop the rains, or stop the typhoons or storm surges. But what we can do is help our customers to become much more resilient to those risks. I think I'm probably not the only insurance person that has been labouring this point for the last decade or so, but I think this is becoming much more obvious to people that we need to make the right preventative measures on individual risk level in order to mitigate or at least control the extent of the damage that we are likely to see in these weather events, right? So I do think the risk prevention and helping customers to understand their risk and exposure a lot better is the key to mitigation, right? And I've seen that before around the industry, but also around various different events in Hong Kong and in mainland China. And I think the other thing to bear in mind is that if we just talk about mainland China, it is a very vast region, right? So there are many, many different type of perils, natural perils that impact mainland China. So if you think about, of course, typhoons and rain, but also earthquake and also drought and also many, many other sandstorms, etc., that come into play. So I think, when we talk about the mega events, right? Yes, from an insurance perspective, they probably make the headlines, but from the operation of our customers, probably the daily events or the smaller events are just as damaging to create just as much ongoing disruption to their business as one mega event. So I think risk mitigation and understanding from the customer's perspective is where we can help them. And then from our perspective is really just providing the right coverage and support, also post the events, because customers in a mega event often complain about the delays in getting the claims adjusted, getting people out there to look at the damages and getting things rebuilt and reopened, right? And I think it's our job to provide that after event service. That is also very critical as part of our offering.
How do you see Hong Kong's role as a risk management hub evolving in the years ahead? And are you pleased with the reforms that have been made so far?
I came to Hong Kong 14 years ago. I was previous to that stationed in Australia. So when I came into Hong Kong, I really got a buzz of what is it like to be in one of the Asia's insurance hubs. Obviously seeing all different risks from different countries being wholesale through this market, I think it's one of the most exciting experiences and why we always attract so many young talents into Hong Kong, right? The government and our regulator, the Insurance Authority, have done a lot actually over the last number of years to try and promote Hong Kong as a regional reinsurance and insurance hub and risk management hub. Number of things like the launching of the ILS legislation, promoting captives by providing incentives and subsidies for captives set up in Hong Kong. We've seen that take hold in a number of cases, right? So I think there is definitely reforms and government action which is helping to push the reinsurance and risk management hub position of Hong Kong in Asia. And I'm very committed to this part of town, so I'm very much hoping to see that continue and span into even more other areas as well. What makes a hub and what makes a risk management and insurance and reinsurance hub? I think the core at that is talent, right? I think people is what make this business. And when we talk about such changing risk landscapes and we talk about such new risks emerging in this region, you need the most innovative but also expert people to actually digest this information and work with clients to be able to build the right solutions. Having the right people with the experience and expertise and attitudes is really what we need to continue to do in Hong Kong. So I think a few years ago, obviously we started some more connectivity of transfer of talent across Greater China. So, we have, even in our office in Hong Kong, we have a number of colleagues who are coming from the mainland China market. And so this exchange of people and knowledge is really creating a hub which can hold information and expertise that's very useful for the rest of Asia, right? If you look at the industries, the core industries like high tech and automobile and energy, right? These core industries which are developing very, very quickly around Asia, in all the countries around Asia, we can really leverage the data, the experience that we are gathering from the Greater China region and almost export that, or at least apply that to different risks that come into Hong Kong looking for insurance capacity. Right. And we already mentioned risk engineering and risk management. That's another area that we need to continue to disseminate information to our customers. We need to actually be able to gather that information, one, and expertise, but then also educate back and share back to our customers and the wider industry on how that is impacting the different risk profiles. Creating a talent hub and a place where people want to come and they see opportunities when they come, right? As a result, building up that expertise and then being able to apply that for greater Asian risks is where, a hub will naturally, organically create itself. Our regulator is always being a very business-friendly regulator. The Insurance Authority has always, in all my workings with them over the last decade or two, it's always been very open to discussing how can they help the industry to progress further, And I guess one of the examples that we've seen in very recent years is the setup of MGAs in Hong Kong. So, Hong Kong probably now has one of the most active MGA markets in all of Asia. And that is also, we have our regulator to thank for that. And most of these MGAs are specializing in specialty risk and providing specialty capacity for clients who has that need. That is, we can see where you bring people in and you have the expertise and the talent here and the capacity here, create momentum in rolling on and on into bigger and larger type of risk management regional hubs.
The reforms, though, in recent years have certainly been very well received. What direction would you like to see that agenda go in next? Is there anything kind of on your wish list for Hong Kong that you would like to see?
I think there is a large amount of wish lists that I'd like to see, but I think I've already really been very on point with my largest one, which is around talent. Any of us who work in the insurance industry or the risk management industry in Hong Kong, talent is always one of the top topics we talk about, because it is, to have people with that energy, the drive, and also the expertise, that combination is actually not that easy to come by. And I think we need to think about different ways to create opportunities here, make sense for people with those skill sets to be attracted to our lovely city here. Right. So I think for me, it's really around talent and creating incentives and opportunities for people to gather together as an industry, and then the business, I think, will follow. Having like Markel, who has set up in Hong Kong for 15 years, as I mentioned before, we have one of the most experienced teams here. We have one of the highest underwriting authorities that we can deploy locally. The market knows this, our customers knows this. They will come to this office. They will ask for our support, So having that soft skill and that expertise here, I think that's very, very critical.
It's certainly an interesting time for the region, and the market here in Greater China, and it's been really interesting to listen to your answers, Chelsea. So thanks very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you.